I personally don't like Jimbo Fisher. I understand Jimbo Fisher, but I know I have a friend who was close to the family and knew and was giving me updates during that whole process. She's also very good friends with the Bowdens, and got a chance to see how that transition and a lot of those things happened. And to be honest with you, this relationship was sort of doomed from the out the gate. And it's an admin thing, and that's really where you see Florida State struggling right now. I know it's fun for fans to pick on Willie Taggart, and I get it. Willie, at the end of the day, didn't win enough games. No matter how close they were, no matter what it is, he didn't win enough games. But the coach right now is dealing with the same stuff. It's a lot of the same issues. The only thing that's been consistent is the admin, and now they're trying to change it, and they're doing a great job with the boosters. But it really stems back to Bobby, and just how they treated Bobby and how Bobby exited. But going to Jimbo, when Jimbo's son got diagnosed with his rare disease, and Florida State tried to tell him to keep it under wraps, Florida State doesn't donate and doesn't allow him to be able to use his name and likeness, or basically the university to be able to donate towards that. When Florida State puts those restrictions and uses things like, if we allow you to do it, we've got what's stopping us from allowing any other employee, like the janitor, to want to be able to donate funds for their local thing. That's kind of when they open the door for other programs, because every time LSU came after them, and when ultimately Texas A&M got him, they got him with the opportunity to do for his son. So I might not like you, but I'm not a hater. I actually have a new phrase that I learned from my friend Sean King, former Buck. If I go to sleep hating on another man, I pray I don't wake up. That doesn't mean I have to like you, but that means that I can understand and I can respect the situation. And if somebody put my livelihood and my son on the table, I don't give a damn how much I like the university, Florida State University. Miami can come offer me, and if they have a program that's specifically for my kid, and they're going to let me raise funds and they're going to take care of my kid, I'm going to probably leave. Now, I might leave in a better way than what Jimbo did. So, I mean, that's just kind of paving the way in the light for a lot of these other things. Also, every time that Jimbo went and said, I'm about to leave, there was obviously, we all as fans saw the big picture, the number of the contract extension. We didn't see that in that contract he asked for more analysts. In that contract, because analysts are what do you call them in Florida the state of Florida. Anyways, the state of Florida work, you're only making like $30,000 and you don't have health benefits. You're a temp worker. So he's fighting to get benefits, money to get benefits for his assistants, for his analysts who are working 60, 70 hours a week that are afraid to get a cold. So there are things that he's doing and that he's asking for that as soon as he left, we went in, and when Willie took over, we put all of that stuff back to pre Jimbo, back about it. We didn't want to play ball. And that's really what came into it. And you can't keep asking for job interviews and keep your ship running right. Now that is where Jimbo really messed up. He stopped recruiting the offensive line. I wrote an article. If you look at after 2014, if you look at Alabama, Clemson, even Texas A&M, but really the best schools, they recruited on average 5 offensive linemen, regardless of stars. 5 offensive linemen every year. That way, when somebody doesn't pan out, you got competition. We recruited, so when you look at the numbers, it was like 25, 25, 23, things like that. We ended up having, when Willie Taggart took over, we had recruited about, I think, 17 offensive linemen. Don't quote me on that. I don't have the numbers right in front of me. But bottom line, it was a vast under recruitment. And what is our biggest weakness is our offensive line. So it started then. It also started when he took his eyes off the road. Other people are only going to start realizing that if I see you're entertaining offers every week, I'm going to entertain that. And recruiting, and this is why when people, like I saw somebody say about, I agree, Norvell should get year 3 because Willie didn't have to deal with COVID. Well, Norvell didn't have to deal with the number 60th ranked recruiting class, where the whole class basically evaporated with one guy who was notable said, my guys hadn't talked to a coach in 3 months. So he took his hands off the wheel, but I blame him, but I really bring this blame to the admin because there's no infrastructure. There is nothing here. And this is why I also don't blame, I blame him for X's and O's, but I don't really blame Mike Norvell as much because we're not, our school is a big time program on accident. It's not deliberate. And before Miami fans rag us, you're not that far off either. When I look at what Alabama's doing, Oklahoma's doing, forget all that. If you look at every school in the SEC, Auburn fired a coach with a huge buyout and is about to build a $100 million facility, indoor football only facility. We're complaining about building something like we're Florida State. We got 3 national championships. We had the longest top 5 winning streak of all time. I mean, top 5 wins, top 5 ranking of all time. We got the creme de la creme in the NFL, but yet and still, we don't have the money to be able to build the things that are necessary to be able to compete. Right now, and this is why I laugh at fans bickering back and forth about who's better, Taggart or Norvell. The reality is this: if Shiite doesn't change soon, you're going to see Florida State need to make a serious decision. Do you want to be in Power 5 and play big boy football, or do you need to go down to Group of 5 with the UCFs of the world? Because right now you're being cheap, and being cheap isn't going to make you compete. And you can tell me kids need to just come to play ball, but I'm going to tell you this: as a man who got a little bit of money, a house is a house, but I'd much rather live in the neighborhood that I live in right now than a damn shack. Because if a house is a house and all I need is 4 walls and a roof, then it should not matter. So I bring that to kids. If I have the opportunity to perform at a high level at Taj Mahal, why in the hell would I go live in the projects? And that's what no matter all the trolling back and forth that we do, that's the reality. Because we're arguing about do we have enough money to build a football only facility, and other schools who are dealing with the same stuff that we're dealing with. Hey, Oregon State, who I don't know, I don't think they've won more games on my 2 hands in the last 4 years, is building an $80 million football only facility. How in the hell does Oregon State afford that? They ain't got no field night. That's the things that again. So without really going all the way into details, that's the reality of what FSU is. It's really, as much as we want to blame the individual people, we have to blame the powers of at B, because culture is dictated by leadership.
Logan and I have talked about this off air many times. Florida State, FSU was not ready. The best moment of the last decade for Florida State football, the best moment for the football team was not the best moment for the school. Florida State winning the 2013 national title, Florida State wasn't ready for that. FSU, the athletic department, was not ready for that. The school as a whole wasn't ready for that because everyone keeps forgetting we were still in that rebuilding mode coming off the lost last half of the decade of 2006 through 2009.
Thank you for saying last half of the decade.
Last half of the decade.
I appreciate that. That makes me feel better.
That was just for you, guys. But think about it. We had won 3 ACC titles during the first 5 years of that decade, from 01 to 05. We won 3 ACC titles. But the last 4 years were a much downward slide, not record-wise, but as far as the standard that we had as Florida State fans and alumni. 2010 was a 4-loss season. Made it to the ACC championship game, was a 4-loss season. 2011 was also a 4-loss season. 2012, you only had 2 losses. You won the ACC, but you still weren't there yet. So Florida State was not ready to be a national contender. All of a sudden, we come out guns blazing, damn the torpedoes mode, winning this national title in the 2013 season, and you see everything changes. All of a sudden, we have to spend money. All of a sudden, we got this idea in our head that we thought we were one of the big boys. We thought we were all of a sudden up there with Alabama, up there with the big money LSUs, big money SEC schools, the big money Texases, these big money programs, and we weren't there yet. Jimbo Fisher, by the time the 2013 season had ended, in his 7 seasons in Tallahassee, Florida State had 5 athletic directors over that period, including 2 interims, had 5 athletic directors in a 7-year period. You don't have that. There was no continuity with what was going on.
Why did most of those guys leave?
Dave Hart left because he got more money in Tennessee. It goes back to what James says. It is about the money. And I'm going to say it like this. People seem to forget Florida State, for all our great power of that dynasty era from 1987 to 2000, 3 national titles, great time, Bobby Bowden, everything he came through. Florida State this season will play its 75th year of college football. Much less than a lot of other programs, much less than the Michigans, the Notre Dames, the Ohio States, these schools that have played 50-plus years more than Florida State has. Florida State is still a relative newcomer, not just as far as the football team, but also the alumni base. The alumni base, we don't have these big money multi-millionaires and multi-billionaires to the extent that, I'm just going to say it, to the extent the University of Florida does, to the extent Alabama does, to the extent Ohio State does. It's going to take James and my generation, and then Logan's generation after that, once we start making the money, once we start selling our gyms and start doing radio on 1010 Jacksonville Sports Radio, to give that money back to Florida State. Once Noel Game Day gets bought out for a gajillion dollars, to buy that, give that money to make it Logan Robinson Stadium at Bobby Bowden. That's what it's going to take, is for us to finally put the money in. We are not in that position right now. That's why I say the 2013 season is actually where things start to go down, because all of a sudden it's like, oh crap, wait, we're the national champions? Wait, all of a sudden we're changing our uniforms. We're changing our logo. We're scheduling all these games. We're not – right now this Florida State team is not ready to play LSU, Alabama, Georgia. But we're scheduling games like we're big boys. And we are not big boys yet. We are still not to that point we were during that dynasty era. It does have to deal with continuity. It does have to deal with – right now we're getting out-recruited by Miami. We're getting out-recruited by Florida. We're the third best of the big 3 schools. So it's about getting back. We have to go back to building the program the way – we've got to go back to the way Bowden did. And it was a different era because obviously we weren't in the conference at the time. We were independent, but his whole schedule and playing anyone at any time. The Oktoberfest schedule in 1981 when they played 5 straight away games at Nebraska, at Pitt, at Arizona State, at Notre Dame, I believe it was at Ohio State. You have to go back to earning that. We have to go back to earning it, earning that pride, earning our garnet and gold back, earning our spears back. We have to go back to earning who we are. James said it right earlier this month when we were talking about the schedule. And James said anything less than 8 wins is unacceptable. By Florida State standards, yes, that's the way it should be. But that's not where we are right now. Where we are is we have to realize, as much as I hate to say it, and I feel like I should turn in my alumni association card for saying this, we're a 6-6 team at best this season. Right now, could things change? Could things get better than that? Absolutely. Will I predict us to win every game? Yes, because I am a biased alumni of the school. That's how I feel. But in reality, we are right now a 6-6 team.
No, I thought James was saying. I was going to mention too. Definitely, I agree with both James and Jason here that after the national championship, we've been saying this whole time since we've been on Mark Rogers' show since the beginning, that after they won that natty, they thought they were already they were right there with Alabama, which was a completely terrible business idea, the way you're thinking that, just because you hit one good old mine that you're going to be set for life, and that's just going to be it. And then you don't agree with your coach where he just won you a national championship. The players are pushing for better facilities, and that's not going on. You don't get on the same page, and then boom, you have bad communication on the inside. It just blew everything up. We had Vince Williams on our podcast last week, and he, even other guys that we've had on, but they have a ton of respect for Jimbo Fisher. Definitely the guys that he had around him as assistants. Jimbo built a great staff. Also coming from Bobby Bowden, I mean, you already have Odell Higgins. Pruitt was in there. You also had Stoops. A lot of these guys loved being coached by Jimbo Fisher. Vince Williams said he hasn't watched Florida State football in pretty much 2 years. Said it's just he can't watch it. It's tough to watch. He can't do it. He said that he does think that things now with the new staff coming in, he thinks that it's heading in the right direction on where this culture needs to be changed in the locker room. But he said he just can't do it to himself, which you hate to hear for a guy that's going to have a 10-plus year career at the same organization that he got drafted to with the Steelers, being a starter. You just hate hearing that alumni right there, one of the most successful alumni that is in the league right now. just hate hearing it. So it's tough, but it all started in 2013. It was bittersweet. We found out bittersweet. You win a natty, but things just start falling apart and dwindling down and down and down, which sucks.
If I could just say,
which is why I said what.
No, I was just saying real quick. I think the one thing we also need to recognize is that Jimbo, as much as I've ragged on him for the way he left, and it is hurtful the way he left, he was a very good coach at Florida State. His time was a very good time at Florida State. I think the advantage he had that a lot of people seem to forget is that he spent 3 years as the offensive coordinator. He spent the 07, 08, 09 season essentially building that offense after a dismal 2006 season, building that offense so that come 2010 when he had complete control, it was a completely different animal. And you look at the difference. You went from a team that was, I think it was 7-6, 8-4, or 7-6, 9-4, and 7-6, and then all of a sudden you're a 10-win team winning the ACC because you could finally put everything together. He had a chance to build that. Willie Taggart didn't have a chance to build off of a dismal 2017 season. Mike Norvell hasn't had the chance to build off a dismal 2019 season by FSU football standards. Jimbo Fisher had time to build that underneath before he was able to come in there. Also remember, Mike Norvell's coming in from Memphis. Willie Taggart came in from a one-year stay at Oregon, but let's be honest, he came in from USF and from Western Kentucky. Jimbo Fisher came in from LSU, just a few years removed after winning a national title. You could almost argue that at that time, and I don't think it's a step down, but you could argue he took a step down going from LSU, although he did spend a year at Cincinnati, LSU going down to what Florida State was after that 2006 season. So he kind of felt like, okay, I'm coming down here. I'm going to bring this SEC mentality to build up Florida State versus Willie Taggart and Mike Norvell, who come across like, we're just happy to be here. We're finally in our dream jobs coaching Florida State. You need to come in with a little bit more of that Jimbo Fisher mentality of I'm going to come in guns blazing, damn the torpedoes, and not just I'm just happy to be here.
Basically, what I call it is you got to go Power 5 JV. Yeah. And Power 5 JV is you got to go to Mississippi State. Like what Florida got. Florida got a coach that went to Mississippi State, learned how to perform in the SEC at a school with expectations, but not as much expectations. And then he was able to transfer over to a bigger program and kind of grow the right way. But like again, it just comes by. That's why I think a lot of fans again don't understand. Vince is an amazing person. I got a chance to interview him over the summer. His intensity and his understanding of what it takes to be a Noel and what it's like to have gone on that field and performed at a high level is second to none. I really wish I wish he would have been around when I was playing because I think he would have really been able to play. It had a great impact on. Nothing against him where he was at then, but I think our fans and our players have fallen into the same mindset. Like, this is not a JV problem. It's a problem of I think the worst thing that happened for the program outside of the national championship, which that's never bad, but I think the worst thing that actually did happen was to fire Jimbo before he was able to coach that Florida game. Or before he was able to finish his last season, letting Odell take it over. You should have let him go down with the ship. That way, you actually see what the real issue was and that there was a culture thing. And now when that next guy takes over, he's not the one who puts you in he's not the one that snaps the 36-game bowl streak. The guy before that was the one who snapped it at 35. So when so it's a lot. Then now it snowballs. So now, because I've heard a guy, AD, say that when you fire a coach early, all you're doing is setting it up to fire the next coach early. Eventually, you're going to have to let somebody be able to establish their roots, and you're going to have to let them hang themselves. You don't pull the trigger because you're afraid to lose boosters. Our boosters aren't strong enough to have that kind of pull. So I think what they have to do now is and I've always been a proponent of this. Is why I haven't fired any of the coaches this go around. You have no choice. You have to ride out with what you have, and you have to hope for the best. But at the same time, you have to be critical, and you have to understand that the standard is the standard. What are we trying to achieve? Because if we are trying to, it is so funny. All the people who retweet stuff of mine and say how negative I am, they all retweeted this one thing I put out today. Nate, all the cats, and loved the energy. It was Jalen Ramsey at the ACC Media Days, something that I've attended. The ACC Media Days, going around interviewing all the other guys, and he was the big thing in the locker room. He was going over, and at the end of it, he interviewed the Virginia guys. He said, "What do you guys think about the season? We're going to go out there and just try to compete in good games." That's the difference between us. They're just trying to have good games. We actually out here trying to get wins. It's either you're going to compete or you're not going to compete. There is no in between. It's in between us and the media. But when you're an elite athlete and when you're at a big boy program, you do not cower to anybody. When we hooped on that 50-yard line and we put our helmets in there, we turned our asses to everybody else, and we walked off to the good, the bad, and the ugly, we wasn't walking off with a hope that we can play a good game. We were walking off knowing that we know there's a 95% chance, unless the team busts the Douglases us, we're going to walk out and we're going to whoop those guys up. And right now, the fan mentality, the admin mentality, and I dare to say it, the coach's mentality has been to go out there and just be happy to be here, guys, and to try to put on a good showing. And it's not to win games. And that's the fact. And you have to recruit those guys, but you have to ask yourself, why would Marvin Jones is a good friend of mine. It's a reason Marvin Jones' son hasn't committed to Florida State yet. It's a reason some of the better alumni sons who love Florida State through and through, but have not committed to Florida State yet. It's not that they don't like Mike Norvell. It's that you can't put your kid in that situation if you know what it's like. Mm-hmm. And I don't understand why the media is such cowards to be able to say that. It's not that you hate them. It's just you're stating the freaking obvious. You want them to be successful. You want them to uphold the standard, but you know what the standard is. And if you choose to write or you choose to say things that aren't the standard, you're choosing to manipulate the media for likes, clicks, and buy-ins. You can't be elite and think you're second fiddle. I don't give a damn how many times Miami came. I lost to Miami 4. Yeah, I played 5 times. I lost to them 4 times. Every time I stepped on that field, though, you couldn't tell me I wasn't going to beat them. You couldn't tell me I wasn't better than them. The minute that everybody who's affiliated with Florida State comes back and has that elite mindset, the minute that Florida State will be back. Until then, we're going to be out here wishing it and being happy about PWOs. And like I said the other day, I was a PWO and I didn't care about being a PWO. I don't understand. Like I said, a lot of this stuff that's going on, my bad, I'm venting. I got to go to do radio. I don't understand it, but I also don't understand not being an alpha. And that's just my whole, that's my 2 cents. I'm sorry I got to leave you guys on that note, though.
No problem. Thank you.
I got to go make some money.
Appreciate it, man.
I'll talk to y'all next week.
Some money.
When Mark pays us, he can stay with us. Thanks for joining us, James. I will say one thing to go along with what you said earlier, Mark. You talked about the 2014 season. I think 2014 was a different year because you're playing off the national title. You're the ones with the bullseye on the back of your jersey. You're the one, especially with the way Florida State dominated in 2013. All of a sudden in 2014, you're the one who's being hunted. For me, I've talked about it before. You could start to see in the 2015 season. The 2015 season, you're losing to a Georgia Tech team that finishes the year 3-9. You're almost losing to Miami. Thank God for Dalvin Cook scoring 3 touchdowns. Otherwise, we lose to Miami in that game. You're winning games against a Florida team that you're playing sloppy. Then you go out to the Peach Bowl. Go up to the Peach Bowl, and you get beat by a Houston team that, quite frankly, Florida State had no business losing to that Houston team. Then you come into the 2016 season, you're beating Miami by 1 point. You're beating Michigan in the Orange Bowl by 1 point. You're beating NC State by 4 points. Once again, thanks to Dalvin Cook in the second half. You're all of a sudden the Ole Miss game was another second half comeback. There's 4 games that Florida State arguably could have lost at that point. So the argument, and I'll say Ronan was correct to say this was not Willie Taggart's fault. This is not Mike Norvell's fault. This isn't – I'm not going to say it's all Jimbo Fisher's fault, but I will say that if you're going to look at the lineage of when things started, the downhill slide started with Jimbo. Is it because he didn't get along with Stan Wilcox? I'm sure that probably had something to do with it. But the argument about, the people who say, Jimbo just wanted better facilities. Tell me the facilities that, and I know it was a different era, it was a different time, but tell me all those great facilities Florida State had when Bobby Bowden led them to 14 straight seasons of top 5 finishes. Tell me about those great facilities when Florida State was still winning the ACC when James Coleman was a part of that team. Three ACC titles over a 4-year period, 2002, 2003, and 2005. It's essentially the same facilities that Florida State has had since arguably the end of the late 1990s, we'll say. So arguably 20, 25 seasons, Florida State's had the same facilities and was doing pretty damn well with them. James is right about saying it's the players. If you're coming out here, I remember being a kid watching Florida State coming down into the Orange Bowl and not being afraid. And then I'm out here watching Florida State get off the bus and almost seemingly being afraid playing inside of a Hard Rock Stadium that had a little over 10,000 people in it. That's where Florida State is right now. And Florida State has to get back to having, I'll say it has to have, I'm going to use a UM word. Miami fans love to use it all the time. You have to have a sense of swagger. We make fun of it with Miami people because, well, they really haven't won anything in 20 years. But you have to have a sense of swagger. You have to think nobody's going to beat me. Because, yes, you may not win every single game, but if you have that mentality, you're damn sure going to win more than you're going to lose.
I think that you and James combined touched on something that I think is critical here in terms of the money. And you really outlined it, Jason, when it comes to looking at schools like Notre Dame, Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama that have generations and generations of wealth build up and those resources and those deep pockets and those families that just have those fortresses of wealth versus Florida State. Of course, there's money in the alumni base, but it's not nearly as deep. And then you got Jimbo Fisher, a coach who, despite doing a great job, as you mentioned, comes from LSU and sees how money flows there, comes to Florida State. And based on some of the things that you guys have said, plus what I see in that article, Jimbo was just constantly demanding, I need money for this, I need money for that, I need money. And he's going up against what was kind of the last of the mom and pop run major football programs. And there was a lot of tension and conflict there.
I mean, let's use the state of Florida as an example. You know, the University of Miami is based in Coral Gables, a very affluent area in Miami-Dade County. Most of its alumni are from the Northeast, from the Mid-Atlantic region. Let's be honest, most of them come from money, so they're able to get a lot of money coming into the program. The University of Florida is situated in Gainesville. A lot of their alumni in the state are in big money markets, are in Jacksonville, are in Orlando, are in Tampa. Miami-Dade County has the most UF alumni, has more UF alumni than Florida State and Miami alumni. Florida State's alumni base is based in South Florida, a little bit in Jacksonville, and then Tallahassee. But for the most part, using me, for example, I'm gonna go up, and I'm one of these guys who I'm going to support Florida State no matter what. If Florida State goes 0-12 this season, I'm still going to buy season tickets for the 2022 season because I'm a diehard Noel. That's my school. That's my alma mater. That's who I'm going to support. But there's a lot of fans who aren't going to make the 7-hour drive from Miami to Tallahassee, who aren't going to take the time off work to watch what Florida State is producing right now. It's one thing if Florida State's a 10-win team. It's another thing if they're a 3-win team. Florida State right now doesn't have the alumni base with the money. Texas is not an elite football program right now, but they have so much oil money. They have so much big money in Texas, in cities like Dallas, cities like Houston. USC is not the USC that it once was. It's got LA money. You know, Ohio State played for a national title, but even the years that Ohio State was a 6-7 team or a team that was on the downward slide, they still have Midwest money. They got Chicago money coming in here. It's going to take this generation, my generation, once we get a little money. I made a phone call that I never thought I'd make where I'm literally dropping $1,200 for season tickets and booster fees because that's my school. That's what I'm going to do. It's going to take more of our big money alumni saying we're going to support Florida State no matter what. Not just when they win a national title, no matter what.
Do we know when spring practice starts?
March 9th.
March 9th.
Less than a month. Less than a month.
I can't wait to talk some new football, see some cats out on the field, using a term that Logan likes to throw out there. See those cats on the field, get some reports back. Logan bringing us some video from practice, and we'll spin ahead to 21. And this is for my own education. I also think, again, I think this is where we're at. We're at a program that's the number 50 or 55 program in the country right now, or as a team, I should say, but it's not that. It's a top 5 to 10 program, and the ceiling is enormous, and it can get back there.
It's a program with top 20 talent, but top 50 mentality. If Florida State went out and played with the talent they had, Florida State would have won out of their 9 games they played this season, probably 7 games. If Florida State played off their talent. But Florida State doesn't have that mentality right now, and that's what they have to get back first.